shout out to Pocket Watching with JT. I just wanted to showcase that comment.
Definitely want to shout him out. Appreciate you watching, my bro. Appreciate the support always. But while we here on this subject, so how does everybody feel about the destruction of the DOE? For those that don't know, Donald Trump said that one of the first things that he was going to do when he got in office was basically take all the money from the third party that the government has funded money to in order to lord over this program of the DOE. And he's basically going to eliminate that entire program, therefore giving money back to the local branches of government over these schools. That way they remove some of these federal mandates across the board that are probably outdated and have been in place for 60 fucking years.
Yeah.
How do you all feel about him? What other people would say is attacking the DOE and getting rid of the DOE.
So let me just say this. Before, as a preface, before anybody goes. The concern earlier, one of you stated it, was that you're afraid that he's trying to make himself a king. He's trying to make a monarchy. How could he be making a monarchy when he's eliminating government? The DOE is a federal organization. He's eliminating their ability to control the education.
Yep.
He's eliminating power from his own wheelhouse.
Yep.
So if he's saying, I would rather put that power back, it's the same thing he did with Roe v. Wade.
Yes.
Because while we're talking about all of these things the government isn't or is supposed to be doing, the government is never supposed to be the ones governing the ability for women to have abortions. It's supposed to belong to the states, not the federal government. So for him to say, or whoever did it, get the fucking Roe v. Wade shit out of here, it wasn't him, but it was one of the justices he appointed, right, that did it, Edward?
What?
That eliminated the Roe v. Wade. That made the Roe v. Wade
decision. I mean, it was the justices he appointed,
right? So it was essentially him by way of the people that he appointed.
Yes.
But this DOE thing is another way of him saying, I don't want shit to do with it, but also when you're making decisions about shit from a distance, it's like me telling you how to govern your household in Georgia. I don't know what the fuck you need.
But see, that goes directly to what you were saying earlier about uniformity. That goes directly against what you're saying. Because what's going to end up happening is when you leave it up to the states will interpret things their way. And that's what you don't want. You don't want somebody from Mississippi saying, hey, slavery didn't exist.
Yeah,
you don't want
everybody pressing their own agenda.
Yeah, that's what you don't want. You don't want that because it's going to happen in 30, 40 years. Some kid is going to come up to you and say, there wasn't no slaves. They wasn't raping black women and raping black men and separating families and doing all that type of stuff. They know that's going to happen. You know what I'm saying? They're like, I'm sorry, R word. Sorry. They're going to be R wording kids and all that type of stuff. They're going to be able to say that. Those kids are going to say that.
Okay.
You're going to be able to trace it back to that. There's no, tell me if I'm off. Tell me that.
Hold on. Because you're basically saying that this is going to eradicate or somehow erase history.
Yes, because they're going to manipulate it, and you know they are. You know they're going to manipulate it.
Listen, everything is manipulated from this point on until the end of time. That doesn't mean that history. Listen, history books are not going to disappear. The internet is forever. You can go anywhere on Google and look up some shit and find out that your great granddaddy was a slave. That is a terrible, terrible excuse.
Do you think white people are looking up slavery? Like just for the fun of it?
Who's looking up slavery? No, hell no. I didn't look up slavery for the fun of it.
But if they don't know about it, why would they even look it up?
Why is it important for them to know about it?
So that's exactly what I'm about that. Let me jump in.
Why do you think it's important? Why do you think it's
why is it important for us to know about it?
That's talking basically about your heritage and your lineage.
But here, hold on. Stop it right there.
Okay.
You said our history and our lineage. You know how I know a lot of the history about our people? Because my fucking father told me. Mm-hmm. Not because my teacher told me.
Absolutely.
So what Brandon said earlier is that he don't want to leave morality up to the teachers. I think you have the right idea about the wrong subject. The things that you want are your children to know about your lineage should be up to you to teach them that.
But
Because it's not American history. I mean, it is American history because it happened in America. But if you're saying it's so important for your children to know that we come from slaves, that's your responsibility to tell them that.
I agree, but
They're gonna leave shit out anyway.
But you
They're
got
just
books
Yes,
and
they
shit
are.
that were saying
Yes,
that
they are.
black people came over from Africa as helpers.
Okay, now if you be disingenuous about the information, that is a different story.
But that's going to
But
happen.
that's
Though.
what, yeah.
That's gonna
But
happen.
that's a hypothetical.
No, it
It's
happened.
not a hypothetical. It's happening.
You're saying that
It's
it happened in
happening now.
Florida. You're
Look
talking
at-
about Florida.
But look at Louisiana. Look at Mississippi. Look at Alabama. Even look at Georgia. They are just now in Georgia. They're already starting to outlaw books, certain books.
What did
They're
this
doing it
conversation
right
start
now.
about? This particular conversation started about what? The
let me-
DOE, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
The DOE. What does
and
this
the
have to
whitewashing
do? What does that have to do with this?
because the DOE is the Department of Education deals directly with the education of students.
So you think the most important pressing topic that the DOE should govern is slavery?
No,
No.
that's not that's not
Exactly.
What we're saying.
So
That's not
let's
what we're
talk
saying.
about the fucking issue.
So should they teach? So should we be
so why
taking?
did they create
what's the
schools in the
issue
first
then?
place?
So
What was the
right.
purpose of
So
schools
should we
in
be
the first place?
learning? So we'll be learning about Romeo and Juliet and all of them. Are they important? Are they teaching that shit?
What do you mean?
I'm sorry. Say that again.
Yeah, slavery,
So-
exactly. Say it again. Say
So
it again.
should we be
please.
learning about Romeo and Juliet or the 1819 war against the Indians or any of that kind of history? Is history
Louisiana
not important?
Purchase? Should we learn about that? Should we learn the Spanish-American War?
What did
Yeah.
Tika just say a minute ago? Tika said all of this shit fake anyway.
Yeah, they
Hit-
putting us in
his-
school for them benefit anyway.
History belongs to who? History belongs to who?
The victor.
The
We
victor.
know that.
The
So
victor.
what are we
We
talking about? You
understand that. We understand. We understand that. But what we're saying is, like for instance, we're all in our 20s and 30s. We're going to be 70 in the future, and then we're going to look back and based upon how the Department of Education is moving right now, they're going to be like, no, they didn't wear a mask back in 2020. That's stupid. We're going to look back like, wait a minute, they did do that.
Who
We
gives a
did. We
fuck?
went through that.
I
I'm
would
just giving an
rather.
example, not the actual
Oh,
thing.
God.
I'm giving an example of it. Like they're
Are
going to be
you-
able to change
wait,
history.
So let me ask you a
They're
question.
gonna be able
Don't
to
make
change
this.
history.
Let me ask you a question, Everhart.
What's up?
And this go for you too, Jay. Are you teaching your kids that we are the first people, we are the creators of mathematics, we are the true kings, we created all of this shit? If
I
it wasn't
will.
to us,
I will.
you say you will. What you waiting on?
I've already taught my kids some things, but they're not quite old enough to grasp all of those concepts. I know from experience because I've already tried teaching them certain things. So
What
I
about you,
will,
Everhart?
meaning when they get older and understand it.
What about you, Everhart?
Am I teaching them what now?
That we are the first people. We created mathematics. We were the first people to do all of this shit.
No,
That's not important.
it's not important to me. It's not important to me for them or their life or their trajectory. How does that help them? How does that help you knowing that you were the first of something?
To me, that gives you pride and strength.
It to
No,
you, it may give you pride and strength.
That's what I just said. To me,
Okay, to you, but to these kids that I see
I'm
today,
not talking about these kids. I'm talking about your kids.
to my kids, that doesn't appeal to my kids. Are 13, 7, and I have an 18-year-old. The 18-year-old is not worried about if we were the first creators of anything. Honestly, that's not the age that we're in. We would all love for all of our kids to be Dr. Sebi kids and be out here learning that we were the first Aboriginals. We was the first. These kids don't give a fuck about any of that. I would rather my kid learn about what he needs to survive, how to be an adult that is able to give something back to this universe, who is able to sustain himself. That's what I care about. I don't care about all that other shit. I don't.
So let's take a page.
How is
out
that
of-
going to help him survive?
Let's take a page out of survival from Trump 101. Stab everybody in the back you can, and do backroom deals and all of this shit. That's the path.
What do you mean by that?
So to me, when you're teaching your kids where they came from and empowering them, I think it's empowering them to do greatness.
Okay, but that you can teach them. So you're saying unless you teach them that's you can't teach them.
I'm not. No, that's not what I'm saying.
But that also doesn't say that you don't also teach them morals. You don't also teach them ethics. Those things also empower them to not stab somebody in the back, to not be out here taking advantage of their friends, to not be out here taking advantage of a system, or take all those morals, ethics. Those come with being a parent generally. I don't need them to know that they was the first or something for them to learn ethics and morals. That's just human standards that we should be teaching our children anyway. So
well,
I don't
ethics
need
and morals are just human standards that we should be teaching our kids
in a society.
Morals,
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. So I don't need for them to know, them knowing that they was the first, or that they came from a race that was the first to do some shit, and they can't take that shit nowhere and put it on a resume. They can't take that shit nowhere today and put it on the resume.
I think it might be helpful.
Nobody's gonna hire your ass when you walk in there and tell them, look, I got a resume. I came from a race that was the first to do this. And they're gonna say, great, what can you do for my company?
It's for self. I feel like it's for self-empowerment. So you can add that to morals and ethics. So it's just kind of like, oh yeah, I see this white man over here doing this, but yeah, I came from this, so I know I have it in me to do greater if I'm doubting myself. So I feel like in addition to
for that. Yeah, absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, so if it just in case it help, I feel like you could just throw that in there just in case they're gonna latch on. Put this in my pocket.
Especially if you're being told like you ain't did nothing, or y'all ain't doing nothing, y'all just monkeys, or y'all just did this.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Who was telling them that though?
Somebody.
You don't think it's
you don't think that there are races that make black people feel lesser than?
Wait, hold on. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people at least on this live right now that have children. Have any one of your children ever came home and said to y'all, we was told today that we ain't nothing but monkeys?
Yes.
All right, then I stand corrected. You got the one kid that came.
These white kids use nigga a lot. They say nigga and they use hard.
That's not what I asked you.
I'm just saying, but I'm saying the pathway to disrespect.
Yeah, that's
racism.
I'm not I'm not talking. Yo, you see, you're separating the issue. I'm not talking about them dealing with racism. They can't escape that. What I asked you was basically, have they been told by someone who was in a teaching position that they was monkeys? No. So that's not a problem that overarching kids are facing. That's not something that I would rather focus on. I would rather focus on other things that my children can utilize today. That shit don't do nothing for me. That don't move me. That shit that we was the first, we need to focus on that. We was the first black ones. That's great. Can you use that shit to get a 6-figure job somewhere? If not, no, I don't care about that shit. That's me.
I think history is important to me, but I'm not relying on the school to put that into my children. I already know all the shit that I need to know in terms of that to put into my kids. You know why? Because my dad put it into me and my sister. When all the shit that he told me, and
hold on. How did it make you feel knowing that?
Me personally, it gave me a sense of what is true and what isn't, because my father would tell me things from what they're saying about this person is bullshit. Like, we learned about Malcolm X in elementary school. They lied about all that shit, so it was pointless because I had to go back and relearn all the things about Malcolm X.
Of course, because this is not set up to tell the truth about us.
And so if what you're saying is true, then the DOE was responsible for lying to me about Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. Because I remember literally being in kindergarten.
It's way deeper than the DOE.
It's way deeper. You're right. Absolutely. But I remember being in preschool, literally looking at a picture of James Earl Ray shooting. It was like a colored book picture.
Mm-hmm.
James Earl Ray shooting Martin Luther King. And then you come to find out that all that shit is a lie. So what is we talking about? I don't want the school to be teaching my kids about slavery. And then first of all, we ain't no motherfucking slaves. Because what you just said is you went back to the beginning and we was the first to do mathematics. Why am I teaching my kids like, oh, we come from slaves? I made a mistake in one of the interviews I did, one of my artists, and then I said something, I said the term, we come from slaves. And he stopped me and said, no, we don't. Because that shit is a blip in time of our history. Black people have been on this motherfucker for tens of thousands of years. And we talk about slavery that lasted for quite a long time if you're talking about the scope of what we deem to be long or short. Very important in our history and how it has shaped us through these last 4 or 5 centuries. But it isn't our story, my nigga. That's not something we got to put in our pocket and carry with us at all times. You said, am I going to teach my kids about these things? Absolutely. I'm going to teach them all that shit. Right now, they don't give a shit because all they care about is Fortnite. Their brains ain't even there yet. But when it's time to do that, I got a whole slew of shit we gonna talk about. And I have it from an even deeper understanding than my father had it. Because he was the stepping stone for me. He told me here, and then I found out a bunch of shit that he don't know. So
Another
when
thing,
go ahead.
Another thing that the DOE does is the destruction of the DOE does, because when you federally mandate something across the board, that means that every school, every teacher everywhere has to follow this subset of rules in order to teach kids, because they believe that this system is the best system universally. It does not account for culture. It does not account for any of that. So the very thing that you're advocating for would not be in favor of having the DOE continue to run the way it has been ran for the last 60 years. Because when I was in school, I don't know how it was when you was in elementary school, but when I was in elementary school, I remember the Miss Kings. I remember the Mrs. Moreland, which was my 4th grade teacher. Miss Moreland was not playing no shit, but she had a entire back room, which was a library, that she took kids in, and she could tell us all these different stories about history and stuff like that. You cannot do that as a teacher today. You will be fired for some shit like that. So the DOE is probably one of the worst things that ever happened to Black kids, if you're on that whole thing of it's important for our kids to learn this, that, and the other, because teachers cannot individually teach kids about that shit no more. That's not in the school book code nowhere. They can't do that. That's not in the curriculum. They got to follow the curriculum.